Imagine you're standing in a strange landscape. The ground is familiar, but the map in your hand doesn't match the territory. The roads you expected to see aren't there, and the landmarks have changed. And the voice in your head is asking, now what? When the familiar guideposts vanish, when the plan stops making sense, what do you aim at? If you've been following this series, you know the critical thought learning frame: anchor, sight, stance, and direction. Anchor, what grounds you? Sight, what will you see clearly? Stance, how will you respond? And now direction, where are you headed? Direction is not prediction, it's orientation. In chaotic times, you can't always forecast, but you can choose what to aim at. And that choice will quietly define who you become. When the map fails, purpose steps in as your North Star. There's an asymmetry between the first step of the learning frame, anchor, and the last step, direction. Anchor holds you steady, direction moves you forward. And here's the truth: goals are fragile in chaos. Forecasts crumble when the weather changes, but values and vision endure. Values are your compass. Vision is your horizon. When you have those, you can navigate even when the path is gone. Because when the map fails, purpose just isn't guidance, it's survival. Before you can see if your direction is off target, you need to pause and understand how your mind tricks you into thinking you are on target. When we lose our usual navigation anchors, like landmarks, the sun, or the moon, our internal sense of direction starts to fail us in very specific ways. We walk in circles. It turns out this is not just a folktale or a cliche from adventure stories. Scientific studies have shown that when people try to walk straight without any external guidance, they unintentionally veer off course and end up in loops, sometimes as small as 20 meters across. Why does this happen? Our brain relies on an internal map of straight ahead to navigate, but this map is not perfect. Small errors creep in with every step, a little more to the left, a little more to the right, and these errors accumulate. Without landmarks or the sun to recalibrate our direction, these tiny mistakes add up, making us slowly circle back on ourselves. What's fascinating is that physical differences, like one leg being stronger or longer than the other, do not explain this. Researchers have tested these physical asymmetries by measuring leg length and even adding thickness to one shoe sole. None of these factors systematically cause people to veer left or right. Instead, the culprit is the brain's imperfect internal sense of direction, fed by small, noisy signals from the inner ear's balance system and body movement systems. The path we end up walking is not a random zigzag, but a smooth, gradual curve. Experiments with blindfolded volunteers walking in forests, deserts, and empty fields, tracked by GPS, confirm this phenomenon again and again. So failure in our navigation system manifests as this invisible feedback loop, a feedback failure that causes us to unknowingly walk in circles. It's a reminder of how much we rely upon the environment to keep our internal compass calibrated. The lesson: when the map stops working, the usual feedback from the world is gone. Our brain's best guess leads us right back to where we started, literally. Sometimes our sense of direction fails us, not just in the woods, but in life. We all like to think we know where we're going, that our internal compass will keep us on course. But just as a lost hiker without landmarks will drift in a slow, perfect circle, we can do the same without our judgment. The truth is, we are all hardwired to make errors in judgment. Good judgment isn't something you're born with, it's a skill. A skill that has to be honed over time by becoming a sharp observer of your own thinking and performance. And we begin with a disadvantage. Why? First, when we are incompetent at something, we tend to overestimate how competent we actually are. And if we think we're doing fine, there's no reason to change. Second, as humans, we're easily deceived by illusion, cognitive bias, and by the little neat stories that we tell ourselves about the way the world works and about our place in it. Psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger gave this blind spot a name: the Dunning-Kruger effect. The idea that the less skilled you are, the more likely you are to overestimate your skill. It's kind of a double curse. First, you make mistakes and poor decisions. Second, you lack the very expertise you need to recognize those mistakes. If you've ever seen the early audition rounds of American Idol, you've witnessed it firsthand. Hopeful singers utterly convinced they are on the road to stardom when their performance says otherwise. It's not just TV fodder. This is in all of us. We all have pockets of incompetence that we don't realize, areas where we're subtly fooling ourselves. So why don't we learn from experience? Dunning and Kruger point out a few reasons. In real life, we rarely receive blunt, honest feedback. Most people don't like being the bearer of bad news. And even when we do get negative feedback, we have to interpret it correctly, and that's harder than it sounds. When something goes wrong, it's far easier to blame the tool, the circumstance, or other people than to admit the hand used is unsteady. Now let me ask you a few questions and answer honestly in your mind. Are you good at managing money? How good of a driver are you? How well can you read people's emotions? How healthy are you compared to others? And here's my favorite. Are you better than average at grammar? If you're like most people, your mental awareness is always suspect. In one study, 88% of American drivers rated themselves as having above average driving skills, which is mathematically impossible. In another, software engineers were asked to rate their own performance. At one company, 32% of the engineers ranked themselves at the top 5%. At the other company, the number was 42%. Across domains, health, leadership, ethics, the patterns repeat. Most people rate themselves above average, which cannot be true in the real world. And here's the problem. If you think you're already better than you are, you won't learn from failure. If the attributions you make, the why you assign to your mistakes, are wrong, your ability to improve will stall. You'll keep walking in a perfect circle, confident you're marching in a straight line. The way to break the loop: clear feedback, honest benchmarks, standards you can measure yourself against. A map, not the one in your head, but one anchored in reality. Because only when we stop assuming we're already on the right path are we truly ready to find it. As we continue to explore why our internal maps sometimes fail us, it's important to understand the traps our minds make along the way. Mental pitfalls that skew our judgment and make it harder to learn from failure. One of the most persistent is confirmation bias. This is our brain's tendency to search for, interpret, and remember information that confirms what we already believe. Instead of open mind, we carry a filter, selectively gathering evidence that supports our pre-existing ideas, while ignoring or dismissing anything that challenges them. Think about the repeated failures in all attempted flights throughout history. Confirmation bias might be at work. Early inventors saw what they wanted to see, convincing themselves their approach would work. Closely related is motivation bias. Here, it's not just what we believe, but it's what we want to believe that shapes our view of reality. Economist Tim Hartford calls it chasing your losses. Imagine a poker player who just lost a big hand. Instead of folding, they're more likely to make riskier bets, desperate to win back what was gone. This same behavior plays out in many areas of life, where we double down on failing strategies simply because we're motivated to erase that mistake. Then there's overconfidence, the double-edged sword of confidence. Confidence is what gets entrepreneurs and dreamers to take the leap, but it can blur the boundary into overconfidence, where determination turns into stubbornness. Researchers Furr and Ahlstrom warn us, Don't confuse determination with overconfidence. Knowing this can save us from walking blindly forward without questioning whether or not we're on the right path. Finally, consider compatibility traps. These emerge when we narrow our view to what feels comfortable or familiar. In business, this trap often shows up as the question, what can we build that people will buy? But that's backward. Instead, the real question is, what do people actually want to buy? Or better yet, what problems are customers facing that we haven't been able to solve yet? Sometimes the solution lies outside our usual framework, in places that challenge our assumptions, our reasons, and our comfort zone. These traps, confirmation bias, motivation bias, overconfidence, and compatibility traps, blur our vision. They make it harder to learn from failure, to change course when we need to, and ultimately find out our true direction. The good news is that awareness is the first step. The more we recognize these mental pitfalls, the better chance we have to navigate away from them and towards clearer, truer maps. Failure in motion. Tim Harford says our egos are our own worst enemy when things go wrong. We fall into traps. Denial, pretending we didn't make a wrong turn. Chasing our losses, throwing more resources at a bad decision to make it right. And hedonistic editing, reframing failure so it doesn't sting, even if it costs us the truth. I've done all three, and every time it pulled me further off course. Failure is not the end of the road. It's a signal. It's feedback from reality saying, this way isn't working, adjust. The real danger is ignoring that signal because we're afraid to admit we're lost. Let me share a simple story to illustrate. After a long day's drive through southern Utah, a father and his son found themselves at a literal fork in the road as night approached. Unsure which path would lead home, they paused to seek guidance and to make the best choice or guess. They both thought they should go left, but after 10 minutes, the road ended in a dead end. So they turned around and took the other road, the right one. Later, the son asked why they had been inspired to take the wrong road first. The father replied that sometimes knowing what isn't right gives us total confidence in what is. That brief detour made the rest of the journey certain. Can we learn our way back on target? Psychologist Carol Dweck makes a powerful distinction. Performance goals are about proving what you can do. Learning goals are about becoming or being able to do it. When the map stops working, performance goals can lock you into place because you can't risk looking unprepared or wrong. Learning goals, on the other hand, invite you to move, explore, and adapt. It's the difference between protecting your ego and protecting your future. And that's at the heart of the critical thought learning frame. We are not just trying to look good when the crisis comes. We're building the capacity to think well when it matters most. In the case of extraterrestrial disclosure, new information will come fast, and much of it will be incomplete, conflicting, and uncomfortable. We'll have to integrate it, categorize it, evaluate it, and keep doing that over and over. That's why the learning frame is not a one-time test. It's not about nailing it the first time or even the seventh time. It's a process. It moves with your life. And when the ground shifts, it can keep you balanced while moving forward into more learning. For the critical thought learning frame to make a real difference in your life, something has to change. You need intention followed by action. A lot of people think that key to success is setting goals. But as Scott Adams points out, goals can lock you into a mental model that often sets you up for failure. Here's the problem. In a goal mindset, you live in a constant state of pre-success failure, always chasing, never arriving, or in permanent failure if the goal never happens. Systems work differently. A system is something you do consistently. You succeed every time you apply it because the win is in the action itself. Goal-oriented people battle discouragement every time they fall short. System-oriented people feel a small victory every time they run their system. That difference is energy. It matters. It keeps you moving forward. Think about it this way. A goal says lose 10 pounds. A system says learn to eat in a way that makes you healthier. In chaotic times, goals often collapse under missed deadlines. Systems rooted in your values and habits keep you moving in the right direction no matter what the calendar says. Because direction isn't about speed, it's about staying true to the vector you've chosen. Back in 1997, I discovered the work of Monty Roberts, now a well-known horse whisperer, author, and leadership trainer. I saw him do a live demonstration that completely reframed how I thought about leadership. Hollywood likes to show breaking a horse, all ropes, brute force, and dominance, but Roberts doesn't break horses. He starts them. That's the word for it because it's a beginning, not a battle. And here's the part that floored me. In under 30 minutes, no ropes, no force, just trust, body language, and reading cues. And then it happened. The horse chose to follow him, chose to join up. Roberts created an environment where direction was mutual. He didn't impose a path. He built a relationship so the journey could happen together. Leadership in chaos works the same way. Whether it's in your family, your team, or your community, you can't force people to walk with you when the map is gone, but you can build enough trust that they choose to keep moving beside you. When the map stops working, it's not the end of the journey. It's the start of navigation. Direction in the learning frame means this: know your why, trust your compass, move with clarity, because in the end, chaos can change the path, but only you decide where you're going. I'm Shane Lester. This is the Day After Signal podcast. Stay anchored, stay clear, and keep moving when the road disappears.